So happy that you showed up and joined in to listen and take part of my podcast. It's called You're Probably Right, where everything is right to somebody, and sometimes the left is right and sometimes the right is wrong. Yeah, that didn't really work too well, but whatever.
Maybe your stupid opinions aren't right. And are you so sure your life is going so much the way you want it to go, and you're such a bloody paragon of virtue, and the light is shining out every orifice, and everyone who disabuses you of your notions is evil?
Hey y'all, what's up? It is I, MCM, and you are listening to You're Probably Right podcast, otherwise known as YPR. Yeah, everybody has an acronym, so I just figured, it might make it easier for some people to find me or something. I'm just joking because I don't have that stated anywhere in my podcast listing. Yes, it is You're Probably Right podcast, and this is your host, MCM, and you are welcome at my house anytime. Figuratively speaking, of course. That's right, old timers. A little bit hoarse here. Check it out. Today, I'm going to read a sermon from the one and only John MacArthur, a little piece of one. Now, you might say, why don't you just give us the link and we'll check it out? The reason why I'm not going to do that is because, first of all, this sermon touched my heart, and I think it's very important for people to hear this. Another reason is I might add my 2 cents, and I'll let you know. Hopefully you can tell when I'm speaking rather than when I'm reading. And as I said, shout out to public school in Ontario. So you'll probably know when I'm reading and when I'm just speaking off the cuff as I am right now. But first, I think I want to do some questions. I had all these questions put down here on this file, and I haven't been able to get to all of them. So what I generally do is I try to answer the questions somewhat, and then I'll expound on it a fair bit more. So basically I'll answer the question, I'll put a couple points down, and then I'll expound on it more, just so the question has been considered a fair amount before I just blather off a bunch of nonsense, even though at times I'll do that anyways. But I'm going to get to questions 31 through 42, and then I'm going to get on to a sermon by John MacArthur called Forgiveness, and you will be able to find that at gty.org, library sermons and library /90-108. Now, I know you'll be able to follow that, but if you check out the podcast notes, you'll be able to find the link in there. So if you want to go and see the real deal and hear the real man speak for himself, then that's where I will send you, because I always put notes. And understand that the notes that I put in on each podcast, they're not necessarily, how the best way to put it, I guess, clear and articulate. But basically, when you see the notes that I have down, they may not be grammatically, I can't even say the word, grammatically, there you go, correct, nor punctuated or anything else. They're just kind of blah, the stuff that was on my mind, and I wanted to get it out, and I needed to have it in some kind of order so that I could articulate it to you to understand exactly where I was coming from when I answered those questions or whatever it is. So first, I'm going to give you the dumb question of the day. Okay, ready? Why does a round pizza come in a square box? Yeah, these questions are supposed to actually make you say, but at the same time, they're stupid questions. So I call them stupid questions. Obviously, it's a lot easier for a person who's making pizzas in a pizza shop to put together a square box rather than a round box, because that would have to have many more latches and snaps, and it'd probably be more expensive So basically, you can cut a straight line or you can cut a circle or an oval. And obviously, cutting a circular box would be probably more difficult and more expensive. But that's just my opinion, and that's the reason why. Other than that, maybe they just want to rip you off the dough and the extra cheese and the extra pepperoni on the corners when you just get a round pizza, if you understand. So it's not the full size of the box. Okay, so that's my answer for that stupid question of the day. All right. So, question 31. And obviously there is 30 back to 1 somewhere in all of my podcasts. I've been doing them time by time. So understand that you're going to have to look around probably a little bit just to find the other questions or the other answers or both. Okay, here we go. Let me just make sure this thing's taping because yes, it's happened before where I have rambled on for an hour just to find out that the podcast, that was the best podcast I ever did, of course, didn't actually tape. So here we go. Should mobile phones be allowed in schools and colleges? My answer to that is yes and no. Or should I say no and yes? In schools, no way. I know that schools tend to try to use the excuse now that they're allowing their students to use cell phones because at times they need to do research and they don't have enough devices like Chromebooks or iPads or computers for students to find the information that they need to do certain projects and certain tasks properly. So therefore they let students use the cell phones. But knowing what I know, and this is again from the elementary to high school level, students get caught up on the same things that you get caught up on. They get caught up on TikTok, sort of not really Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all kinds of stuff is popping through these devices at all times. You have a student not able to concentrate, a lot of the students not able to concentrate for more than maybe 8 minutes at a time. And that's at school, where generally, and of course I'm speaking about Canada, but I'm sure it's probably the same in the States, whereas public school especially, you're getting schooled by the state or the province. So therefore the money, yes, it's coming from taxpayers, but it's just something that everybody's getting. So your parents don't really have a personal hand in the amount it costs for your education. Of course, they're paying their taxes, so they do in a sense, but at the same time, it's not directly like your fee for this month, like other places like maybe India or China or the other places that you literally have to shell out a certain amount. But I don't know about China, so I won't even say. But you understand what I'm saying. For a place, or let's just say even a college, or let's say an institution that educates that you actually have to flip the bill for it, yeah, you could probably allow students to use cell phones, because at the end of the day, if they are not successful, they don't move on to the next grade or the next area of education. They have to go back, and it's going to cost them more money. Chances are those students will probably pay a little bit more attention. So basically what I'm saying is cell phones, obviously from the question alone, cell phones, as we know as adults, are very distracting. And we're getting to the point, I was saying this to somebody today that, I have various alarms set, not on my phone anymore. I have them set on my watch, which is connected to my phone. So I just know where to be, where I'm supposed to be at a certain time, because I have about 8 or 9 set throughout the day to do different tasks that could easily go undone just because of all the other stuff that I'm trying to keep up with. And it helps me. But what I'm realizing, just like the phone did, these phones are called smartphones. But what I'm realizing is all these smart devices, and it's funny they're called devices. If you look up the word device, divisive device, but the smart devices are starting to make stupid people, because the schedule that I have wouldn't be unlike somebody else in a previous time, like years back, that would have had to keep up with it. Maybe they would have had it written down for maybe the first 2 weeks, and after that they would just have their schedule down and they would pay more attention to the clock and get to where they needed to be on time. But me, I totally, and I guess from this standpoint, I immerse myself in the task at hand, not worrying about the next task coming up, because I know that the watch is on my wrist that's gonna buzz and let me know, okay, it's night, it's time to do this certain task, and then you can get back to what you're doing right now. So in a sense, I get to concentrate and I don't have to stress about it all day, and I miss tasks a lot less, but it also leaves me almost slave or dependent on the devices, and therefore less dependent on my actual brain to do tasks and remember when it is time to do different scheduled tasks. So wheeling it all back in, I would say that phones should not be allowed to be used at elementary or high school level for students and certain staff members if shown to be abusing those things, because of course staff are being paid to teach students and not check out their Twitter or check out their whatever. You understand? And many staff members would say, oh, I do my job, it's just the down times that I pull it open. But trust me, when something's going on at home and someone would have to usually stay home and cool off, maybe from a hard argument or a conversation, now, even though you're, 27 kilometers or 14 miles from home, a person can still carry on the same exact conversation that they left off with before you left to work and probably torment you. And you understand what I'm saying when you actually have a hard conversation before you go to work, and somebody, instead of just being able to shut the door and say, okay, we'll talk about this later. Nope. We're going to talk about this in exactly 28 minutes when you get to work and you're supposed to be concentrating on your job. So I would say in schools, although I guarantee you it would be a tough go at the beginning, I would say for sure cell phones should not be allowed in schools. But in colleges now, where people are actually paying, and you're going to pay the consequences if you do not concentrate on your job and your education at that level, I would say that colleges, it can probably work. Because at that point, you are probably teaching young adults and some adults how to balance work life and home life and entertainment and business and pleasure. So that's my answer. Hopefully you can figure that out. Okay, on to question 32 or 2 for today. Hard work versus smart work. I believe in hard work. I believe that you should do hard work. I believe you shouldn't shy away and try to make it easy for the sake of just trying to make a job easy. But if you can measure 10 times and cut once, then I would believe that would be the way to go. I mean, if a guy, just speaking from a simple terms, if a guy was cutting some wood to go around the bottom of a wall, or otherwise known as a baseboard, you wouldn't want to cut it, go up to the wall and see if it fits, cut it again, go up and see if it fits, cut again and again and again and again and again and again and again, and then all of a sudden it fits, would you? Because that would take a lot of extra work. It wouldn't be very smart. But what would be smart is if you walked up to the wall and you took the measuring tape and you measured it all the way across the bottom, and then maybe you did that 3 or 4 or 10 times, but most people wouldn't have to do it 10 times, and then cut the wood one time and slide it into where it goes, then obviously that would be the better way to go. So that's where I would say work smarter, not harder. So in other words, work smarter so you don't have to work needlessly harder. But hard work is good for you. And hopefully you understand that. And that's pretty simple and straightforward. Next question. 33. The impact of movies on youth. Now, it's funny, I did speak about this in my last episode, 31, about movies and music and pop culture in general. And, the impact on youth. Well, let's see. movies are basically a waste of time. Now, as far as information is concerned, there are various movies. I guess it depends on the movie, of course. I should have said that first. But movies can teach you a lot. Movies can teach you about history. Movies can teach you about past and future. But mostly, I would say, yeah, it can teach you about history. Sometimes old tales need to be passed on. And, we don't have such a verbal storytelling culture anymore, whereas you'd have like grandparents or storytellers in a neighborhood or something tell stories of what happened in 1985 when such and such went down to the river and this and that happened, and like that stuff doesn't happen anymore. Now it's left to videos, documentary movies, and old pieces of tape if you can find them. Like speaking of that, like how apparently the Terry Fox statue in Ottawa was desecrated. If you don't know who Terry Fox is, there you go. You Google it and you can check it out, or you can check out the movie. But a lot of kids, in Toronto here, for instance, they do a Terry Fox run in every school every year, so it kind of stays fresh in that way. But sometimes, and maybe he's not a good example, but there are certain historical figures in society that need to be remembered, what they did, why they did it. Or maybe like a Ben Johnson, who was caught for cheating and doping steroids and lost his medals from the Olympics and was the shame of all of Canada and I guess Jamaica, because that's where he was actually born. But maybe the invaluable lesson of why you shouldn't cheat, is up. And, that's up for debate. Some people say that, it really wasn't his fault. It was the whole culture, and they only singled out certain athletes from, say, smaller, weaker, politically weaker countries were singled out. And apparently everybody that was in the races that he sprinted and cheated in, apparently they were all on something. But I guess, sadly, that's probably going to be seen in the future as true, but he'll probably be long gone before they actually establish it and probably reinstate his medals, most likely. That's usually how that stuff goes, if that is true, the fact that they were all cheating. So going back to movies, I would say that historical movies with a deep message that maybe couldn't otherwise, but most movies can be otherwise explained, and that's usually through books and storytelling. But I would say that the impact of movies on youth is that sometimes it gives them a false sense of reality, a false sense of security in what they're looking at, in that they will try to look like movie stars. They will try to do what movie stars do. They will expect certain things from their relationships based on somebody's apparitions of their mind that they put into film, and expect unrealistic things from relationships and other people based on movies that were, as I said, apparitions of somebody's mind and somebody's dreams. And just like the characters alone, like, you would think that maybe a girl on a movie would say, wow, she just woke up like that. Look what she looks like. It's like, no, actually, she had to starve herself for 6 months. And when the movie starts being shot at, say, 9 a.m. in the morning, that person was sitting in a chair getting their hair and makeup done since 5 a.m. to look that good. But unfortunately, they don't let you see that or know that. Sometimes actors do speak about it, but it's not the main part of what's usually publicized in general for every movie, to let kids know that what they're seeing is a production. It's not real. And honestly, if you ever cried in a movie, if you ever watched like The Notebook, or if you ever watched any of the other really tear-jerking movies, you'll know that sometimes, no matter the fact that you know that it's fake, you know that it's a production, you know that it's Hollywood or Bollywood or Nollywood or whatever, it's still for some reason still touches you in that sacred place in your heart, and tear will fall down like it's really something that's really happening. And you think about it in real life, it takes a lot in real life to usually make a person cry. A movie can go on for, say, an hour and maybe 55 minutes or something like that, and they'll have you crying right at the halfway part. Easily, a tear will fall from your eye. Maybe people won't see, but you know it, and I know it. All right, next question. Should the internet be censored? My answer as a Christian, 100% yes. You should be able to have everything at your fingertips. And some people say, well, where's the freedom? Where is the freedom to see the expressions of the artists that would try to get messages to us? And the question is, who would be censoring them? And I guess that is the question. It's not whether they should be censored. It's who should censor them. Because if it's focus groups that have their own ulterior motives, or they're trying to put across a certain narrative and they're censoring stuff, then yeah, you won't know exactly what happened in the truck convoy in Ottawa and Toronto and other places. You won't know about the millions, 10 million or whatever so money that was raised to support the truckers because a lot of citizens support them. You won't hear anything about that because that's not what the narrative is. You understand? So, and it's all on the internet. It's like they say, do you want to see an aerial shot? And then they show you like 17 trucks and some crazies running around. They're not showing you the real protest, the thing that's really happening. And so it's like, do you want your internet censored in that instance? And it's like, no. But then do you want your 10-year-old bombarded with filth on movies or whatever it is that they're watching on the internet, or video games? They go to a site and all they're trying to do is download a certain pack or an app or whatever it is. And next thing you know, there's somebody running across the screen half naked because, that's because the people who are providing some of the crack codes for some of these programs that cost hundreds of dollars have an ulterior motive. They want them to buy into something. I mean, once you see certain images on a screen, you can't unsee those. So the problem, I guess, would be that maybe some of the messages that should get across to people won't get across to people, but at the same time, some of the things that you don't want to get across to certain people won't get across to certain people. I mean, if you're a glutton or you're a person that struggles with food addiction or whatever it is, you don't need to see a hamburger commercial every time in the middle of something. And sorry, I'm going to segue for a second. The Super Bowl halftime shows. If you want to see something amazing and also be set up for what's going to happen in the near future, I dare you to pull open YouTube and check out the halftime show that just took place a few days ago. Was it 4 days ago? The video was put up for the halftime show. After 4 days, the halftime show starring Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Mary J. Blige, 50 Cent, Eminem, and Kendrick Lamar. I believe that was it. There was Anderson .Paak was playing the drums. But that audience for those characters was so huge that it was 54 million views in 4 days. And then if you go and you compare that with the one that Beyonce did, or the one that Bruno Mars and Beyonce did with Coldplay, or if you check out other ones that went in past, this one Super Bowl should surpass those. And it was basically hip hop oriented. And you might say that Mary J. Blige was singing, but of course they call her the queen of hip hop soul because she was always singing on stuff with like Method Man and a whole host of other rappers, and she was dancing in her videos and doing her own dances and whatever it is. So it kind of lets you know, and it should let black people know, the level of your buying power, and I guess also let advertisers know how much that hip hop and black artists really sell, you know, in these events and just in general in society. It's kind of scary, but I see this kind of thing having a further larger effect on society, knowing the information we know now. So as I said before, check it out. See how many views that one is. Apparently, somebody told me, my son told me that it's getting over 100,000 views. That one video is getting over 100,000 views every single day for 4 days now. It's just going crazy. So, yeah. So, again, back to, should internet be censored? I would say yes. But the question is, who's going to do the censoring, right? And really, who should be the censor of the internet for little children? It should be parents. And who should adults be accountable to? Their peers, their spouses, their close friends, the members of the church, and such. And I think that's one thing that our society is lacking, is accountability. We have gotten to this point where it's like everything goes, all bets are off. If you feel this way, cool. Or going back sadly to Aleister Crowley, do what thou willst. Willst. All right. So you can take that for what it is. It's my opinion. And you know what, guys? I don't think we're going to get to forgiveness today. We're already at 25 minutes in. We'll have to save it for next time. So next question. Should uniforms be mandatory in the schools? I say 100% yes. Now, maybe parents need to have some say in what type of uniforms, fit, color, etc., whatever it is, sure. Even students for the year. I mean, it wouldn't be very effective as far as cost is concerned. But the fact of students not having to figure out how to show more skin in the girls and the guys, because, but I mean, that's a whole, are you going to wear a belt in your pants or not? Or if you're going to hike up the skirt a little bit higher than it's supposed to be, that's a whole nother thing, right? There's still going to be individuality when it comes to that. But the fact of parents having to spend lots of money on multicolored shoes and different colored name brand items and getting kids hooked on this type of living early doesn't help. I think if, students who were at, you could always tell, when I was in college, I could always tell a student who came from Catholic school. And I'm singling out Catholic school because, that was basically the most common separate school with uniforms that were out there. And I also had kids that went to school that weren't Catholic, but they were uniform schools. And I can honestly say, it honestly takes the pressure off parents, knowing that you're only going to have to buy maybe 5 or 6 different sets of uniforms until, one or two get burnt out here and there and you replace them one by one. And if you have other kids coming up, there's good old hand-me-downs going to the same exact school. It certainly makes it cost effective. You can spend more money on something like extracurricular activities like sports or proper nutrition. Instead of buying, say, the bag of chips, maybe you'll make mashed potatoes and send them with some chicken or something like that to school, or vegetables or whatever it is. But the bottom line is, you don't have to say, I have to get those new pair of Kyrie Irvings or Jordans or whatever the shoes or the clothes might be, or, you can just concentrate on hair and having your kids clean and having the uniform clean for the next week, not worrying about whether your kid's going to feel like less because they were only able to afford George items from Walmart or Joe from, Joe Fresh or whatever the name of the brand is from that grocery store. But that's just my opinion. And I mean, if you don't agree with me, I'm sure you'll have your reasoning and, maybe you're probably right. But that's where I look at it. I think being a parent with kids that have gone to Catholic school. Actually, one did go to a Catholic high school, and two of them went to a school that wasn't a private school, but they did think that in the area it made sense for students to have uniforms. I think it worked out just fine. So definitely, I think it's a good idea. I think all schools should have it, but I mean, there's different things for different people, and I'm sure everything doesn't work right across the board for the whole of society. So there's that. Let's see. Love marriage versus arranged marriage. Listen, I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I personally have ruined 2 marriages. Now, some might agree and say, yeah, you did. Wow, that's messed up. Well, check it out. I know I didn't ruin them by myself, and they were different and extenuating, precipitating factors as to why things didn't work out properly for me personally. But those were supposedly love marriages. Now, for me, looking at it now as the old school vet I am now in the situation, I honestly would go for an arranged marriage. Now, you say, you're really going to think that a person should just go grab a person that they never met before, married and happily ever after, yada, yada, yada. No, there should be some criteria. First of all, hopefully you have a family member or family members that can stringently go through the different criteria as to what you're looking for. And yes, a picture would be nice. And I guess now, because of the different technology we have, we can probably see a little bit more than just a headshot that can be possibly photoshopped. But in a meeting would be good. But I mean, you can look at size and faces and body features or whatever, like certain body. Obviously, and I'm not getting into the real specifics. But I believe if you're, like, for instance, 2 Christians and they're real Christians. Now, not somebody who's professing to be a Christian or professing to be pious in certain ways and holier than thou. That's not what I mean. I mean, if you have, for instance, 2 Christians that believe in the Word of God, the whole Word of God, the 66 books of the Bible, and they're practicing Christians, and this is being seen by elders and ministers of the gospel at a church, and they list hobbies, they list things that they like to do and all that stuff, and it's done honestly. I believe that arranged marriages could probably work better than love marriages. Reason being is people in love marriages, it usually gets clouded in lust. It usually gets clouded in lies. Whereas in arranged marriage, you're just putting it out there. Now, I'm not saying people who get arranged marriage don't lie, but initially the facts are just placed down there, and you probably hope for the best that somebody will actually like the person for who they're told they are. Maybe a conversation here or there, a matchmaker, and yada, yada, yada. I think honestly that would work. And this is from somebody who's, failed for lack of a better word. But that'd be me for how I look at it. And I mean, you may have a different way, but I would honestly, if I had to do it all over again, and I mean, you'd hope that the people around you, like your parents, for instance, could pick out. But I mean, when you sit and think about it, people who were subjected to a love marriage, most of them would say, you know what, I wouldn't want anybody that my mom would pick for me or my dad would pick for me, maybe. But I would honestly still err on the side of the arranged. But I mean, the love marriage would be ideal. But somehow I think that an arranged would probably work better. But that's just my opinion. And if you don't believe what I think, or you don't agree with what I think, then, you're probably right. Okay. E-learning, a substitute for the classroom? Nope. That's my answer. That's 37. Because yes, you might get a lot of actual work done, possibly, if the student is able to concentrate and is able to work the different workings of the computer and the different applications. But you lose the social aspect and you lose the physical fitness aspect, even if you somehow had a class of 20 students and you delivered a treadmill to each of their homes. E-learning is just not the same thing. You do need the social interaction. You need the physiological cues to understand how to operate in this society. And you can't generally get that just from headshots and smiles on a screen and stuff turned in. And that's just my opinion. Let's see if I can get to a couple more. Are you working on any projects outside of work? Well, yes, my podcast. Next question. I try to do a few different things, and I have a couple different things going at the same time. But I can honestly say that my podcast is probably the one that I enjoy the most. And by the way, I have been given the green light to go ahead and actually do video podcasts now by Spotify. But I don't know if I want to venture. And the funny thing is, the first podcasts that I actually created were done via video, because I didn't have a better way to tape my podcast than using a video camera or a cell phone over it, whatever it was. But now that I look at it, I think that I would probably opt for the audio first. And I mean, if it's necessary, you can drop an email at ypr podcast at gmail, or you can just leave a message on the podcast here. But I don't see it as necessary, and I believe that I have a face for radio, which is actually, funny enough, the job that I probably wanted most out of a long line of different things that I thought about as a young person growing up. I do like the soapbox talk, and it would be nice to have a couple of conversations, but right now this is how I'm doing it. And I have been given the green light. I did apply to see, and they welcomed me in because I do have YouTube channels and I have done video productions. I did do a few videos, 29 to be exact, differently from my personal endeavors of singing and stuff like that, video type videos. But I did do core word videos for students, and those went over pretty well. I mean, they're not hugely successful in the greater scheme of society or public, but they serve the purpose, and the students did love them, and I'm happy that they're just there. As I said, differently from something that I did for myself. But anyhow, that's an whole other thing. So yes, I do have other projects going on outside of work, and I think we all should. I think you should aspire to do a job that you would technically do for free, that somebody's willing to pay for you to do. That's just my opinion. Simply, it says, has your company embraced working online? And I would say, in a sense, actually, I think it was their idea before this whole pandemic. I can honestly tell you that most of the workforce didn't want to do it, but I can honestly tell you again, from the time that we were forced to do it, a lot of employees have decided that they would much rather be online. But jobs, as far as the bosses and workplaces are concerned, they're finding out that people aren't at half as productive as they thought they would be, generally speaking. And last question, because it says how, but I'm not going to really get into how. But so last question is, how can our company do more to promote anti-racism? And I will simply say, in the words of Morgan Freeman, but even more so differently, stop talking about racism and address it when you see it, not in a cancel culture type of way, but in an educated way. And be honest. If you don't want any part of it, just say it. don't pretend to go through the motions. And the reason why I say that is because I literally saw it with my own eyes, that we had these things, online, where you have a discussion, maybe about anti-racism, and then you go into breakout groups and you pose a couple questions or thoughts, and you want your employees to do some active listening and to show some leadership skills and staying on topic and in a collaborative team working kind of way, critically think about of the different types of anti-racism, and you want the different types of racism that are happening in society, and you want them to problem solve, and you want them to really think critically about it, and have some kind of ideas to do some conflict resolution. But unfortunately, what ends up happening is people go to these breakout rooms and they talk about something totally different, especially the so-called old heads or the old guard or the old boys club or the Karens. They may talk about something totally different, or they may totally monopolize the whole thing, so they don't even, get the gist of the situation. Or you have the righteous soul brother or the activist types that are fighting for certain parts of justice, but not caring about all parts of the justice that they're supposedly trying to get. And then there's the negative attitudes. People need to get with the positive attitudes in these situations. They want to talk about these things, but there's no time management in really talking and really getting to the root of these issues. So it's just fluff. And what's fluff good for but to be blown away? And then we go on to the next situation and there's another problem. So honestly, do I believe that racism is going to be solved in my lifetime or the next lifetime after? I honestly don't think so. But of course, that is my opinion. And of course, if you don't think so, maybe you're probably right. Anyhow, for another podcast of You're Probably Right, this is MCM signing off. Take care. I'm so happy that you showed up and joined in to listen and take part of my podcast. It's called You're Probably Right, where everything is right to somebody, and sometimes the left is right and sometimes the right is wrong. Yeah, that didn't really work too well, but whatever.